Good evening. This week we were asked to read um, Frederick Douglass's "What is a Slave? 4th of July," the Fugitive Slave Act, the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln's first inaugural address, and the Emancipation Proclamation. We were asked to read those for about slavery, freedom, American promise, stuff like that, and we're going to get into that and see how these speeches and these addresses handle this issue. These texts include speeches, legal status statutes, and executive proclamations. We're talking about authorship and purpose. So there's author, you have Douglass, you have Congress, Abraham Lincoln. And so between 1815 and 1863, during escalating national conflict over slavery between the North and the South. To give a little purpose and setting, Douglas's speech exposes the hypocrisy of celebrating liberty, specifically 4th of July, while still having a million enslaved, roughly so, million through 3 million. Um, the Fugitive Slave Act was legally enforces slavery at the federal level. Um, and Lincoln's first inaugural was seeking to preserve the Union first before he was pushed by abolitionists to abolish slavery. But anyways, the Emancipation Proclamation is it reframes the Civil War as a fight against slavery after Lincoln got pressured for not wanting focusing on preserving the Union firsthand. The Gettysburg Address redefines the nation's purpose around equality. Douglass, in his writing, uses very prophetic language, rhetoric, moral indictment, and they have also, I don't want to say juxtaposed, but legal texts are formal and coercive, and Lincoln blends restraint, moral reflection, and political realism all together. And these work really address moral, political, and philosophical questions about freedom, justice, law, national identity, all things like that. So the kind of questions that are being asked are very clearly the moral question: is slavery compatible with? Or I would say, is man stealing compatible with justice and human dignity? Can a nation divided over man stealing, men or slavery, or basically any moral issue survive? And so you give out to the abortion discussion. And what do liberty and equality truly mean? So major claims is Douglass claims American liberty is a lie if slavery continues, and I agree. American liberty is also a lie if abortion continues. So you just do this. It's so easy. Um, Fugitive Slave Act for property rights to supersede personal liberty. So property rights is more than personal rights and natural human God-given life rights. Lincoln's first inaugural address was the Union must be preserved even if slavery remained temporarily. And then after that was the Emancipation Proclamation. He goes, slavery is incompatible with national survival, and then brings about the war. And then Gettysburg Address, the nation is dedicated to equality and democratic self-rule. But nonetheless, they argue using natural. Douglass argues using natural law, scripture, being an abolitionist, along with other abolitionists. Douglass is not a soul fighter, SOLE fighter. He has other people all around him. He uses morality, scripture. The Future Slave Act really relies on legal authority and enforcement. Won't even say a type of if we want to be pushed around fascism, but nonetheless, and Lincoln appeals to constitutional interpretation, necessity, and shared ideals. But the critique, I say critique, the good critiques are Douglas's very good moral clarity. His argument exposes the contradiction very clearly between American ideals and practice. He grounds his critique in the founders' own language of rights and liberty. He uses their own words against them. Of course, the best way to argue for it is the biblical argument against slavery, against man stealing, and then Lincoln's political, I won't say critiques, but political prudence as we see him. He tries to balance moral conviction with constitutional limits, and then we see we see a type of moral progress without abandoning legal authority. If there was a moral progress there or not, or if it's just pressure from people around him, either way, it's still good. And then Gettysburg Address redefines Americans' identity around equality rather than just mere independence. We are very much so an independent nation, but it's also equality. So it also elevates sacrifice as necessary for moral renewal. And we could go and push and say that if we need to elevate sacrifice as necessary for moral renewal, men need to start making sacrifices for the murder and illegal murder of children. But nonetheless, of course, we see to critique a little bit Lincoln's early moral hesitation. He was really trying to union over justice, and then he struggles with the idea: can political unity justify moral compromise? and depends what you mean moral compromise. And but I guess that's really the critique I have. The Emancipation Proclamation did not immediately secure full human dignity. We know that they were still being treated poorly as it went on, and things as the slavery ended, they still in slavery, still treated poorly. But so more progress is required. Requires tension between law, conscious political necessity, and Douglass is morally right. Lincoln is politically cautious, even though I don't like his conscious, and the law is moral. Yeah. So nonetheless, questions are: when laws and morality conflict, which should govern political action? I of course have to answer. I'm gonna say morality, of course. Does Lincoln's gradual approach to justice strengthen or weaken moral leadership? To me, it strengthens. But nonetheless, this is my response to the documents and speeches and proclamations on slavery. Thank you.